And welcome to the Realizing Resilience podcast, brought to you by Reimagined Roots. I'm your host, Nate Fornier, and today we're going to be talking about hobbies. I love the exercise of doing a time audit on yourself for a day or a week and just getting a sense of how many hours you're actually spending throughout your days on different things. You can break it down by, how many hours are you at work? Are you spending time with friends and family, doing your bare minimum necessities, cooking and cleaning? And then what's left over is usually your hobbies, right? Of course, having a family and having children, take up a lot of time, and that's a beautiful thing. But thinking about your hobbies, right? And so if you look back on your own life, for me personally, I've always had hobbies, and one of the biggest ones was rugby. So I played like rugby through college, and then in the men's league, in like a semi-professional men's league, for over 10 years. And it brought me so much joy, and I like to think about how hobbies you can stack functions, right? You can learn a lot from your hobbies and build different skill sets and overlap a lot of different circles in your life that add value and purpose and meaning. And so rugby is a unique one because it brought physical strength and endurance. And so physically active, it was the reason I went to the gym. It gave me a good purpose. And I have a hard time just going to the gym to go to the gym so I can look good or feel good, But if I have a sport, if I have like something that is gonna push me and I'm held accountable because I'm part of a team and my teammates rely on me, there is so much value in that. And then camaraderie, of course, like having a group of friends now that are basically like family. It was really, really valuable. Also really time consuming. I mean, it was Tuesday, Thursday nights practice. Every Saturday there was a game, and it was, looking back, I'm really grateful that I have done it. And now that I'm getting a little bit older and my aches and pains are showing through a little bit, lingering a little bit longer, I'm glad that I've slowed down on that. I'm not totally done playing, but at least actively and competitively at this time, because I have other focuses. Right now I am renovating my house, and that, as far as hobbies go, some might call it work, but boy, basically throughout my whole life. I mean, I started flipping houses when I was 23 years old, 24 years old, and I would work a full-time job, get home at 6 p.m., scarf down some food, go right to the job site and start working and paint and trim or do miscellaneous construction until like 10 p.m., which is really not healthy for other buckets of life. Like my relationships suffered, my families and friends, I really didn't spend much time, but I was playing rugby. So that was basically my whole life, was work, renovations, and rugby for like 10 years. I bought a 3-family. It was the best decision I ever made when I was 24. And that occupied so much of my time because it needed so much work. But I learned so much. So when we're thinking about skills and hobbies, and I had no construction experience, but I started renovating a house basically off YouTube and just learned so much that helped develop the foundation of building the business of my dreams 10 years later. And so there are, again, real estate investing in general, and so buying a 3-family was a pretty nerve-wracking experience. And while all my friends were their hobbies were going to the bar, drinking, smoking, hanging out, relaxing, not, that was kind of their hobbies, or playing video games, right? How many hours and hours and hours of video games, which I'm not innocent of. I like a good video game, but I made a conscious decision to say, this isn't bringing the value to my life that I could otherwise get by a different hobby. And so recognizing those opportunity costs. And so I made a really distinct mental shift of, when I want to play video games, instead I'm going to watch YouTube videos of construction or real estate investing. And so through my 20s, from scratch and no experience, I started flipping houses. I started a company. I got my general contractor's license. I renovated and sold 10 single family houses. I bought a 3-family that I lived in and saved. And so since I bought that property, I never had to pay rent. My tenants paid my mortgage for me. And it was by far the best investment I ever made. So ideally, when we're thinking about our hobbies, they should offer us more than one result. Playing video games is fun. It's a good dopamine hit in the moment, and it, you develop some hand-eye coordination skills, some fast twitch muscle, some eye movement like benefits. There are certainly some valuable things, and then like some games are really like psychologically compelling, and you learn strategy and things. Which, so I'm not putting them down, but it's just a good example. Alternatively, learning a skill or having a hobby that ideally generates income, like maybe working on cars is another good example. I had a really nice, it was a 1981 Camaro Berlinetta that my dad had given me. He had when he was in his 20s, and it needed a ton of work. And so that was a hobby that was really enjoyable. And I learned how to rebuild an engine. I rebuilt the carburetor. I worked at a machine shop at the time. And so we were able to do a bunch of work and just learn from those guys, and souped it up, made it nice. I welded in some new floor plans, and just, I learned a lot about cars. And of course, as a mechanical engineer, I kind of nerded out. I love understanding how cars work. And so I learned so much from that. And it was so expensive, right? Cars are a very expensive hobby. And so I didn't make any money from it. I had the car for a little while after I fully rebuilt it, and probably put 10 grand into it when I was like 19, which is all the money that I had. And it was fun. It was fine. It was great. And I don't regret it, but there were moments in my life where I've thought, boy, if I had the 10 grand I spent on that car and I used it as a down payment for another rental property, I would be a millionaire right now. It was when I bought that 3-family, I paid $240,000 in 2015. And it just got appraised for $750,000. That whole time it's been cash flowing. The rent has been coming in. I've been living there and living for free. And it's just like, because it was owner occupied, I only put 3.5% down. So it was 8 grand. That was like a lot of my savings at the time. And I had just graduated college, and it was a bit of a struggle to justify. It seemed like it was so much, and I was overpaying, and it was, looking back, it was the best decision I ever made. And then, so just recognizing how we're spending our time and how can we function stack our hobbies, right? Ideally, we learn a skill, we generate some money, maybe they help us maintain our physical fitness, we get community and connection with other people, or just like learn a marketable skill. I think that's a really big one too. Like flipping houses, like I had no construction experience, but now I feel like I have no worry that I could make a living. Like if everything fell apart, if I lost everything today, I have a skill set that would allow me, like all I need is a tool bag. The trades are in such high demand right now, like I could just be a carpenter. I could just work for somebody else doing construction if I needed to. But regardless, I could also go back to engineering. I quit my engineering job only like 4 or 5 years after I graduated with my degree, and had like $140,000 in debt, and started construction, which is like kind of a silly thing, but boy, there's a lot of ways that we can spend our time. And it's, of course, now around the homestead, if you're aligned with this vision of restoring our ecosystems and living from the land, at least to some degree, there's no shortage of hobbies and skill sets that you need to learn to be successful and to generate income or to offset expenses. So that's another good way of looking at it. Right now, it's hard for me to hire a painter. I can paint the walls just fine. And if it costs 5 grand to hire a company to do it, I kind of enjoy it and I'm good at it and I can paint. And so I'll just do that on my nights and weekends. But there's a very fine line between recognizing the value of my time. I think a business coach would say, don't you dare paint the walls. You spend that $5,000, you hire a painter, and you work on higher level value. You're going to, if I focus on sales and got some of these estimates out that are on my to-do list, I could sell $10, $20, $30,000 worth of work and make way more money per hour than painting the walls. But I enjoy it, and I can't always be at my computer, and I need breaks, and I need physical action. I need to do something with my hands, and so sitting at the computer all day is just not conducive to that. And so making these decisions, knowing yourself well enough, what makes sense or not, are all really important things. But when it comes to homesteading, I mean, I have a box of chickens on my floor in my office right now. You can probably hear the rooster outside. I love raising the chickens and building chicken coops and as far as hobbies go, right, it's just universal. Like, you learn so much from that. And of course, gardening and farming is a commitment. There's a lot of skills you need to learn. It keeps you physically active. You get an output. So you're not necessarily making money directly if you're just having a backyard garden, but you're offsetting your expenses and you're learning so much. So I just want to talk about that and in the essence of resilience. The most resilient kind of person you can be, or the most resilient person, is the one with the most skill sets. I believe that. I mean, I think being a jack of all trades and a master of none will always outperform a master of one, or something like that, when it comes to homesteading and resilience and like survivalism and just like independence, to know enough to be dangerous about a lot of different things. I align with. I am so much more keen to live a life where I can weld and do construction and garden and raise my family, raise my farm, and then the soft skills as well, like taking courses. Like, as far as hobbies go, I mean, I am always taking a course of some kind or another, whether it's an online course about relationship dynamics and understanding empathy, or taking, learning. I would love to take some welding classes. I dabble, but I'm winging it and watching YouTube. But knowing like how interested you are and how much you want to invest in developing certain skill sets, super valuable. But just my advice to heed here is to recognize what hobbies serve you and bring value to your life in multiple ways, as opposed to the hobbies that are just fun and maybe they don't bring much value outside of that hobby itself. There are a few really expensive hobbies that are fun and cool, but they don't really give you marketable skills. They don't really add much value to your life other than doing the thing. And so I don't want to knock on anyone's hobbies, of course, but just be mindful and be strategic. Don't just say, just winging it, I'm going to do this now, and buy all this equipment and get started on this hobby and buy all these tools that you don't really need, and then give it up a few months later. Or go all in and invest and spend all of your time doing this hobby, which is great and it's fun. And of course, like the art side of things too, like if your hobby is art, then, that's a different thing. It's hard. And I'm an engineer. I have a hard time with investing a ton of time into art just for the sake of doing art if you have no intention of selling it or generating income from it, or it doesn't kind of challenge you in your skills. So if you're going to do it, go all in, but just be mindful and be strategic and say, this is the outcome that I want, and how can I make a living doing this? Is really the litmus test for me. Like, if all else fails, are the skills that I'm learning from this hobby going to provide me a means of income to support myself and my family? And if so, then have at it. That's great. But just in the essence of resilience, wanted to talk about hobbies and how we're spending our time and being strategic and mindful, stacking functions, doing our best to contribute to society, to have marketable skills, and to just be well-rounded. I think are some of the most important perspectives and ways that we can live our lives. And with that comes community. To find other people who do the hobbies that you do and share with them and connect with them is such an important thing. Because some hobbies are kind of isolation. It's like playing video games, right? Online, you can connect with millions or thousands of people and develop relationships and friendships. And that's fine, but boy, to use your hands to build something physical and tangible and to go and use that thing that actually does something of value. We were just talking, actually, my foreman's really into glass blowing. So I love the art of glass blowing. And there's some function too, to make pipes and things, and you can make a lot of money doing it if you go all in. But I think there's a pretty high barrier to entry to be able to really sell, for significant amounts of money. But there's a lot of skills and sets involved, and you have to know the materials and there's a lot there, of course. And then I just hired this kid to come weld my dump truck, right? And the skill of glass blowing versus welding was kind of an interesting thing that I sat on for a minute, thinking about welding as a skill set that you can create art with. Similar to glass blowing, like you can create really cool artistic things out of metal, and it's a lot of the same skill sets. But with welding, you can do a lot of functional things, and you can post an ad on Facebook Marketplace and say welder for hire and make a significant amount of money. Like, that's a very marketable skill. Whereas glass blowing is more aesthetic, it's an art, but not many people are calling you to make glass cups and bowls or ornaments. Of course, pipes are like the go-to, but beyond that, it's just, there's not much marketable value to it. And it's expensive to get started and all these things. But again, not to knock it. I don't mean to dissuade any of this, but just to plant a seed, to think about it. Like, okay, what skills will be the most universally valuable to my life? And because our time is valuable. So how we spend our time, boy, it's more important than almost anything. So create more resilience in your life, learn a breadth of skills that are useful, stack functions, contribute to the world, and be a useful person. In the essence of resilience, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you so much, and until next time.